Hello, hello, everybody. It is Friday Eve. Sorry, my hair's a little messy. I'm going to let everybody have a moment to hop on. I am Angelique Renee. I am a holistic beauty and wellness expert and licensed esthetician. And I just wanted to hop on today just to talk about a few things. It has been a busy week. I don't know about you guys, but as you are hopping on, please say hello, give me some hearts, let me know you're there. I'd love to welcome you. And for those of you just joining me, I am Angelique Renee, holistic beauty and wellness expert and licensed esthetician. And I work with women to help them release self-sacrifice and to honor their feminine soul. I really take a powerful stand for women to embrace their essence. And in today's world, with everything being so busy and so hectic, I often find that women are overworked, overwhelmed, overexhausted, and depleted. And so I wanted to talk about a few things. Now this week, the energy has been a little squirrely. Got a full moon. I don't know about you guys, but my sleep patterns tend to get disrupted. The energy can be kind of intense at times. And so I wanted to just hop on and talk about a few things that is needed. And, so often I talk to women and they have this soul's craving, this heart's desire for life to be different. So many women are just absolutely depleted. And it's showing up, by the time they realize the toll that it's taking on them, it manifests as hormonal imbalances, hair loss, reproductive issues, lumps in their breasts, or even just on the surface level, their moods and their emotions are all over the place. It affects their relationships. It affects, so many aspects of their life. If a woman is unbalanced, then it has a ripple effect in everything that she does. And so what you have to do, and when I work with my clients, one of the things that I had to personally do, because many of you have been watching my shifts and my changes over the last several years, and it has been a process. It has been a process. And what I tell my clients is that you have to become more committed to the vision of your future than the attachment of your past. Because I see so many women that carry a lot of heavy stuff, a lot of heavy emotions, whether you go through breakups, whether you go through divorce, whether you go through layoffs and job loss. When I was in corporate America, I went through 3 layoffs due to downsizing and mergers and acquisitions. I went through that. I was laid off 3 times in 14 months. The longest period I went without working during that time was 2 months. So imagine the stress. And of course, those of us that are used to having, something like a high paying sales career or being a corporate executive, whatever it may be, definitely unemployment doesn't cut it. That can be a very stressful time in your life. So I find that we go through challenges, especially when it comes to relationships, maybe especially with divorce, financial struggles, debt, so many different things, and we tend to carry guilt and shame. We tend to beat ourselves up. Sometimes we feel like we're not successful in certain areas, and I'm here to set you free. I am here to tell you that it's time to let go of all of that. And for me this week, with the energy that was going on this week, I am so much more committed to the vision of my future than the identity of my past that I decided it was time to let it go. And I don't know about you guys, but there are times where I've written letters I've never sent. I tend to journal. I like to have my little rituals where I burn things and let it go. And I did that last night. There was a lot of things that I was willing to release and let go of. There's not a day that goes by that those of us who are committed to the path of being the highest, best version and vision of ourselves, we're so committed daily to understanding that there are going to be thoughts, whether it's negative self-speak, whether it's self-sabotage, self-sabotaging behaviors, that we have to take a look at those and identify it and take a pause and then choose differently, or choose to see things differently, or choose to act differently. So for those out there that have been on the path of growth and development for many years, it's not that they're absolutely perfect. They go through the same struggles, with these thoughts and these patterns and things that pop up, but they're willing to let it go, and they're willing to shift their perspective and choose. And that's why coaching, mentorship, and guidance is so important, because when maybe you're stuck in a pattern or feelings and emotions come up, sometimes we think we've dealt with stuff, and then suddenly something else happens, and then it triggers something to resurface. And you're like, gosh, I thought I already dealt with that. But, it's just an invitation to dig a little deeper. And we often will have programming from our parents, our grandparents. Sometimes we have religious programming, different things that kind of structure our thought processes. And so often things are just a matter of perspective. Perspective is such a powerful thing. So what I've learned throughout the years is to really tap in and to get grounded, present, and connected, and to tap into my heart, tap into my soul, and to be able to honor myself. If I have the desire for change, if I'm looking to create a different life or a different lifestyle, or to look or feel differently, then I have to be more committed to what I want in my future and the vision that I have for my future than the stories and situations and everything from my past. I can't tell you, I often see that women will repeat stories. And it's almost like the retelling and the repeating energetically, words have power. So it's like it brings it back into your energy field. It brings it back to the surface. So you have to come to that place and space to feel like, hey, you know what? That's a part of my past. I really don't even want to talk about that anymore. That place of resolve, even if somebody comes and throws daggers at you, to be able to say, I'm not available for that. And to be grounded and present enough to just be unwavering. And so it's about choosing differently. It's about taking back your power, about not scattering yourself all over the place any longer. And it's a process, let me tell you. I spent 15 years in corporate America, wound totally tight. Just so much stress, so much anxiety, and it had a ripple effect in everything. And, in my home life, in my body, I was packing on pounds, gaining weight, eating incorrectly. And now I'm in a different place and space to where I choose to honor myself, honor my body, honor my soul. And I do those things. If something is not going to serve me at the highest possible level, I'm just no longer available for that. And it's taken me a long time to get there, because so often we kind of let things slide, whether it's the way people talk to us or treat us, or the expectations that somebody places on us, like especially at the end of the year, working holidays, we have a tendency maybe to overwork. Or, do you work yourself into the ground at this time of the year, trying to close out strong and trying to get prepared for the next year? And by the time you get to your winter holiday and your Christmas holiday, you're exhausted and it's hard to enjoy it. Or if you do travel during the holidays, by the time you get back, you're still exhausted and you've got to get right back to work. And so you're just burning yourself out on fumes, by the time you get done. And so learning to set healthy boundaries, to say, hey, no, I'm not available for this. Or sometimes it's invitations with friends. Sometimes it's invitations for dates. I really have to lean into things now and really feel into things. So sometimes I get certain invitations and I'll say, thank you for the invitation, but I pass, because whether, one way or another, it doesn't serve me. If I know energetically I don't have the energy to entertain it, if I know I don't want to be up too late, if I know I don't want to drag the next morning, or if I know that just I'm not in alignment with spending time with another person, if that person is not a fit into my future vision, then it's not necessarily that I'm antisocial or pretentious or anything. It's just that only have so much bandwidth. I only have so much energetic credit, and I have to protect that in order to be the best for myself and for my clients, because I work very intimately with my clients. I touch my clients, I have my hands on my clients, and so I have to be, the best that I can possibly be in order to be able to serve others. So, and that goes in the home, with your children, everything else. So it's about knowing your inherent worth. It's about knowing that you have to make decisions from that place of honoring yourself, rather than just being reactive and just overgiving, quite frankly, overgiving at work, overgiving to the family, overgiving at church, whatever it may be. If you are doing so at the expense of your own energy and you're overexhausted, then you're supposed to give from a place of abundance, so that way you have something to give. That's true giving, to be able to give from a place of overflow. And it's about raising your standards of how you love, how you live, how you lead, in order to be the best possible version of yourself. And that means that you have to protect yourself, and be mindful about what you engage in. If you know that you shouldn't eat late because it's going to affect you in the morning, if you know there's certain types of foods that don't agree with you because they don't make you feel good, so many different things. And I'll give you an example. I found that I am quite sensitive these days to gluten, to sugar, and I love red wine, but unless it's like organic, sulfite free, I literally will stand in the kitchen and sneeze like 20 times just because of the inflammation in my sinuses. And it's something as simple as that. Am I having an allergic reaction? Not necessarily, but I know I have an intolerance, so therefore it doesn't serve me to wake up the next day with a stuffy nose and feeling sinus pressure or having a headache, anything like that. So it's about choosing what is best and what agrees with you the best in order so you can be your best. So it's just a matter of raising your standards and having rituals. I used to simply write goal statements. And I always keep all my goal statements, and I'm glad I've done that because I read goals from like 10 years ago, and it's amazing to see what you want to call in for your life, what goals you have set. And so I've changed the way that I do that a little bit now, because I'm not just setting goals and checking off a list. But it was interesting to see how, like 10 years ago, one of my goals was that one day I would no longer work in corporate America and be so exhausted that I had to take naps in my car. That was a pretty serious goal statement. Fortunately, I'm now on the other side. I no longer I'm working myself to death and having to take naps in my car. So I'm happy about that. And even earlier in the year, because I've shifted how I write, I don't do goal statements anymore, but I do more like reality writing, like visioning of what I plan, what I'm calling in for my future. And so earlier in the year, I had written out like 25 things that I wanted to accomplish, and I was going back through my journal. And this is why journaling is so important, because when you're writing out what you're focused on, what you're calling in, what you're committed to, then when you have an off day, you can go back and you can reread. And so seeing that list of 25 things that I wanted to do or accomplish back at the beginning of the year, I actually had 22 of them that I accomplished. And so here it is, I was having a funky day, and I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've really come a long way. I did a lot. I've got a lot accomplished. So it allows me to give myself some grace and to celebrate those small wins. Even for that matter, when it comes to, sometimes we have self-sabotaging behavior. And so if you're writing out what you're unavailable for, what your non-negotiables are, if you're having one of those off days, you can go back and say, you know what? I committed to myself that I was not going to allow any distractions or anything to get in my way of what's going to be a part of my future, what I'm calling in for my future. And having that commitment to myself, with daily divine guidance, because we are all human, you know, so we are going to make mistakes, especially if we have an off day, especially if we're disconnected from source and from creator. Then, you know, we have those off days, and it's nice to go back and be able to read your journals and to read your reality writing and to reconnect with that and get that reminder. And in the same respect, also just making sure that you're keeping your vision on the future and you're not sitting in the energy of old past situations, emotions, scenarios that can drag us back energetically. You know, you're trying to be positive, and you know what, you can only read so many affirmations. You know, affirmations is a great place to start, and that is one piece of the pie. And I used to always in my car make sure, when I decided to stop listening to radio and I decided to shut off the television, because all of that's like chewing gum from the brain. There's like no nutritional value. It's just chatter and noise, and our minds are already busy. So like they say, instead of having a mindful, why don't you be mindful? So, you know, it's that shift. And I started like listening to positive programming, which was great because mentally I needed to get in the right headspace. But there's so much more beyond that. We're multifaceted beings, and so you have to do a deeper dive into your soul's calling and into your relationship with Creator, into your rituals, into that daily practice and that commitment to yourself in order to keep yourself moving forward, because your vision for your future is what, and reminding yourself of that is what's going to pull you into that future, so that way you can let go and you can leave the past behind. And you know, there's a lot that we often have to let go of, and I know this has been a year, like everybody I talk to is letting go, purging, creating space for what's new, if you're doing the work, if you're on the path of growth and development. And so in that, you know, you have to let go of the guilt or the shame of like past failures, past hurts. You know, our little shoulders were not designed to carry those burdens. And so we have to give ourselves some grace, and we have to do, not just forgive others, but forgive ourselves, you know. The ego wants to keep us trapped as a slave in our mind. You know, I always joke that I've probably been through my own personal exodus. I don't know how many times, you know, because the mind would like to keep you trapped. But you know, there is a way out, and you can be set free. And the thing is that quite often you just don't know where to start when you're living in a life of heavy burdens and responsibility and chaos, trying to juggle and trying to balance everything. Sometimes you just can't even think clearly. So it's about designing a new reality, you know, and choosing that vision of that reality, and then step by step, piece by piece, you can take that back. And that it's the coaching and support and guidance is so important, so that way it can keep you moving forward whenever you feel you get stuck. There's been some times that I've made huge progress, great progress, and then I got to a point where I stopped to smell the roses, and then after a little bit I'm like, okay, what's next? I know there's more. Like, what do I do next? And that's where it's like, fortunately, I can get with somebody to say, hey, like, here's where I'm at. And then they'll be able to reiterate and speak back to me and say, here's what I'm hearing. You know, somebody that has an ear to listen and somebody that can decipher what you're saying, because it's like neuro-linguistic programming. You know, our words and how we speak tells so much about us and where we're at mentally and emotionally and everything else. So that's where the coaching and support is so important, because it's time to change your blueprint and your inner dialogue. If you have patterns that keep coming up, that keep repeating, maybe you've had situations where you've been betrayed more than one time, then it's time to get the support that you need to reclaim what's most important, which is you. You know, you and your soul and love, those are the things that are real. All the stories, all the labels, all the emotional attachments, all of those things are what contribute to the monkey mind and create all of this static and chaos around us. That is not the reality. You know, that's not your true self when you're in that state. So it's a matter of things becoming easier, you getting clearer, and you knowing who you are, where you're going, reconnecting with the woman that you feel you've become disconnected with. Because I know I've mentioned this in my other videos for those of you that have been watching, that so often as we become mother, wife, businesswoman, then we wake up one day feeling older than we should for our age, and you're like, who am I? How did I get here? And I miss the woman I once was. I miss when I was fearless. I miss when I had so much energy. I miss being spontaneous. I miss being adventurous. So many things. Well, you know what? That's your true self. And you can come back home to your divine feminine soul. It doesn't have to be a far off distant dream of somebody in your past. You can reconnect and get back to that place and space. And sometimes you just need a little bit of guidance on how to get there, you know? The truth is we are not born to just pay bills and die. That's not how we're designed. We are designed as feminine queens to be sexy and sassy and spontaneous and fun and full of life. And you know, the truth is I've been down the road of losing all that to where my life was miserable. I really wasn't enjoying much of it at all. There's actually several years of me where I didn't even really have pictures taken. I have kind of this gap even in Facebook where I didn't have a lot of pictures taken because I was not comfortable in my own skin, and I wasn't happy with who I was or where I was, you know, what I was doing for a living. And as I grew up, I was an artist and a musician, and to work in tech sales for 15 years, you know, that was so out of character from who I thought I was going to be. And then, you know, you're trying your best, and if your heart and your soul's not in it, you can try your very best. And I had success. I had a really good run, but there came to a point where it just became so labor intensive. It became so difficult because I just didn't want to make one more phone call or print one more contract or strategize one more conversations. It just becomes so cumbersome for me, and it weighed so heavy on me because it was not in alignment with my true self. And so I'm very fortunate that I always had a vision for what I would prefer and who I would rather be. Now, I will say things did turn out differently than I expected, because I was like, I want the home and the family and the career and all these things that I want. Well, unfortunately, I had to have some things just get broken into pieces in order to rebuild it back in a better way. And I had to let go of a lot of those ideas and those expectations that I had placed on myself. You know, when things fall apart, especially marriages and relationships, you're like, man, you know, I was trying everything I could to try to hold it together, but I was holding so tightly that I was operating out of a space of fear and scarcity, you know, that I was going to lose something, that I was going to fail, that something was going to crumble. And I was so hard on myself, and it was eating me alive. And so, like I said, there were several years I didn't even have pictures because I didn't feel good about myself. I felt unattractive. I didn't feel sexy. I didn't, you know, I was dressing in clothes that, you know, just were equivalent to a silky potato sack. And I laugh about it now because I just remember the first time I went out with one of my girlfriends and I went shopping. We were trying on dresses for a photo shoot when I was originally doing my first brand launch in business. And she was like, holy cow. And I said, what? And she goes, I had no clue you even had a bust. She's like, and you have a waist. She's like, you're never allowed to wear baggy clothes again, you know? And I was so embarrassed. I'm blushing right now, but it was just so funny because yeah, I had a figure, but I was hiding, and I was so self-conscious, and I was just so unhappy and just hiding. So, you know, the beautiful thing is now I've gotten to a place where I've learned how to flow in life rather than to strive and to push and to grind and all those things. I mean, it used to, I just remember that feeling of, you know, having to take it 10 steps further just to make something happen. And, you know, and in my career too, at that time, it was like the pricing was getting lower. Everything was getting cheaper, which was great for the consumer, but we got no relief safe on our quotas, which meant I had to increase production. And there actually came a time in my career where I looked around at who was successful, and I realized everybody that was successful in the organizations that I was working in either had no children, they weren't married, or they had a stay-at-home mom at home that was like holding down the fort. Unfortunately, I am the mom. Well, fortunately, I love being a mom. I love my daughter dearly. But balancing my constant increase in responsibility within the business world without offloading my domestic duties was really, really difficult for me. And I didn't know how to manage it. You know, nobody tells you that. And I came from grandmothers that were the quintessential 1950s housewives. They couldn't school me on that. And then my mom, as a single mom, worked 2 and 3 jobs. So I got my work ethic from my mother to just constantly grind it out. And so, you know, I wanted to be both, you know, I wanted to be like the domestic goddesses like my grandmothers, but I also wanted to be, you know, have a good work ethic, because I always thought if you worked hard, then you'll get what you want out of life. And that's just, you know, how I was programmed. So now I just realized that there is a better way. And it's just interesting because, you know, now I can kind of dance through life and, you know, and let loose and relax and be myself. And it's just had such that synchronicity in my life has improved my well-being, my emotional well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being, everything else in just a few short years, you know. So a lot of people, they just don't even know where to start. But, you know, it's so important for me. I just, you know, I really support women. My unique brilliance is to revitalize femininity and take a powerful stand for women embracing their essence. And I really help women let go of self-sacrifice, so that way they can reclaim the most important thing of all, which is herself. And when you know who you are, have a vision for your future, where you're going, how you're going to get there, and you raise your standards of living as far as your non-negotiables, what you tolerate. And listen, I'm not one of these hard-nosed people that's like, I've never been very cunning and just, you know, hard-nosed. There was a time where I was rigid, but I'm not demanding, I'll put it that way. So it's a matter of doing everything with love. You know, you can speak with love. You can set your boundaries with love. You can raise your standards with love. You don't have to do it and be obnoxious. You know, sometimes we get a little mixed up. There is a little bit of a difference. You don't have to go out there and be Miss Bossy Pants necessarily in order to be demanding or get your way. You can do everything with love, and you can receive. There's always that saying, you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So I've always been very fortunate that, you know what, usually because I articulate myself the way that I do, even if something has gone awry, I have the ability to come to a resolution, you know, nicely. And because I am nice about the things that I do and the things that I say and the words that I choose, then usually it resolves itself in much better ways than I actually expected. So I will say that I've always been very fortunate that way. So, you know, I really am committed to women who are committed to themselves, to creating change in their lives. Because if you're walking around, if you're being triggered, if everything is stressful for you, if you're reactive, if you're feeling moody and emotional and irritable and all these things, then I have the ability to connect you not only with yourself, but what's going to nourish your soul, your feminine soul. And that's so important, because if we are just disconnected from all of that and you don't have the alignment that you need between, you know, the divinity, your higher self, your oversoul, your heart, you know, everything from top to bottom, if you are out of alignment, I guarantee it's affecting other areas of your life. It's either going to affect your relationships, it's going to affect your work, you know. There's times where I would show up for work and I wasn't effective in my job at that time because I was so depleted. It was hard for me to focus and to concentrate. Something as simple as that, especially when you're going through tough times, if you're going through divorce or, death in the family, or, some women are manifesting, pain and illness in their lives. And so it's hard for them to even grind it out when they have some sort of an inflammatory disease or some disorder that they haven't taken care of yet, but they feel the weight of the world on their shoulders, that everything's depending on them. And so if they're not going to do it, who's going to do it? And, that just goes back to the whole self-sacrifice piece. You got to take the best possible care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others. So, I do work. I've developed a system where I kick off my coaching programs with inherent design. I've developed a life mapping system so that way they can understand not only what their triggers are, but be able to identify their response. And I teach them how to choose how to respond rather than react. And I also give them insight as to the key players in their life that are around them, as far as what their strengths and weaknesses are and what their purpose is on this planet, because often we put incorrect projections on people. And if they don't meet our expectations, then we get mad, we get frustrated, we get angry, and it causes this tiff, when in reality, you might be expecting them to do something or to be a person that is just not even in their design. It's not in their DNA or their blueprint. And it's not a matter of right or wrong, but once you kind of understand that, it helps you navigate through those relationships much better. Even with your children, I've mentioned on other videos before just how understanding inherent design has helped improve my relationship with my daughter, and things that were a challenge when she was small are no longer a challenge now, because I've been able to approach her differently and understand the dynamics between our personality, and to honor that, to honor her, to honor myself, and to alleviate all that stress and pressure by making sure it serves the greater good for everyone. And most people don't even have the slightest clue about that stuff. And it was so funny because as I started learning about that, the light bulbs just went off, and like my family dynamics just started becoming so much easier. It was just this big aha moment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I personally feel everybody needs to know this kind of information, because it does give you a lot of insight and it makes your life a lot easier. But every person is unique, even their body type, their blood type, absolutely everything. You may be even consuming healthy foods that you're genetically predisposed to not even metabolize properly. Maybe that's why you're feeling icky and you don't feel good. So I really run through everything A to Z, from top to bottom. That I have a holistic mindset, because every single aspect of the life is a piece of the puzzle, and it is so important for you to get out of your environment and to give yourself that time to have that divine date with yourself, but also get the support that you need to understand all of these components, so you can piece by piece reclaim yourself and put your life back into balance and give from a state of wholeness, and choose a different state of being. And this state of being, when you are in your completeness, in your wholeness, physically and with your soul and your mind and everything, your state of being, it will just flow completely differently. So anyways, I hope that what I say resonates with you. If you can relate to it, definitely reach out to me. I do have just another space available for the end of the year, but I'm already booking my calendar out into 2019. So if you've been watching my videos, watching my messages, and it tugs at your heart, I'm actually encouraging you to go ahead and say yes to yourself, because this message is getting into you deep down inside. And if you've been wishing and hoping and praying for things to change just because you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, well, that's where you need the guidance and support to get you on track, to map you to your heart's desires and to honor your soul's calling. And you can't be the best, brightest version of yourself if you're running around in a state of reactivity, tipped completely out of balance. And it's going to affect your bottom line. It's going to affect the quality of your relationships. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be very different, and it's a process, and you have to be more committed to yourself than giving away pieces of yourself to everyone and everything else besides yourself. It's that daily practice, and it's the daily practice of, if you have an off day, going back and reviewing the vision that you have for yourself, so that way it continues to pull you into the future to a better way. And it's so interesting, because when I came on the other side of it, I remember once the dust started to settle, I had so much quiet time, I had so much clarity and so much space, and I didn't even know what to do with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cleared all this stuff off my plate. My life now looks completely different. What next? Because I did start out in a place of just trying to figure out how to get out of the hole. Like, I felt buried in life with everything. And once I chipped away at all of that and was able to kind of clean the slate, then I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so empowered, because I could choose, I could decide where I want to go, who I want to spend time with, how I want to do things, and I was able to start really daydreaming and deciding what I want to make goals for, where I want to visit, what excites your soul, what gets you happy. I mean, for me, I've discovered new things I didn't even know I liked before. You're like, I love paddleboarding. Like, who would have known? I actually found a clear lake up the street from my house. Normally here in Florida, I won't set foot in a lake because there's alligators, and I think they're really scary prehistoric creatures, and I don't understand why they survived the Ice Age and other dinosaurs didn't, and it really freaks me out. But I found a really good lake. I love paddleboarding now, and that's something I never would have explored before with, the label of, professional corporate, career woman, mom and wife. Like, everything revolved around everyone else, not about what I wanted to try, and variety is the spice of life, trying new things. Sometimes I'll try something and then I'll decide I don't like it, and I can check it off the list that I don't want to do that again. So anyways, I would just invite you, because like I said, I have a space available before the end of the year. I'm taking clients now, starting to book into 2019, and I have some other developments that I'm going to be moving on to that I'll be releasing at a later date that will serve a slightly different audience from my current VIP immersion program and 60 days of coaching. So now is the time, if you're looking to work with me in order to get the support you need, in order to get your life back in balance. I am fully here to support you, and I only have space for a few more clients, going into first quarter next year. Now is a great time before the end of the year, because I can help support you before all the crazy holiday stuff comes around. I mean, what a better way to start off the new year in a whole new energy, with clarity on what you choose to call into your life instead, if you're not happy and satisfied and fulfilled with where you're at now. It's the perfect timing to do the work. And let me tell you something. I have a friend, she just went through a program. I was so proud of her. It was her first time really signing up for a really solid coaching program, but she was doing her coaching while she was driving cross country and teaching classes and everything. And she said, there was absolutely no convenient time for me to do this, but there absolutely was no better time for me to do this. And she is now, a couple months later, her life is completely transformed and completely changed, and that's what we all want. Life can be beautiful and magical, but you have to create the space to be open to it. And if your life is full of chatter and chaos, you don't have space to receive all the magical, beautiful blessings that are available in your life. It's hard to stop and smell the roses and really enjoy that. So anyways, I honor you. I thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you that are new, please go back and review some of my other videos. I have a lot of great topics out there where I deep dive into specific topics that I'm sure most women can relate to. If you're catching the replay, just put hashtag replay, and I'd love to hear your comments. comments. What resonates with you? Drop it in the comments below. Share my message with other women out there that can relate, that if you know somebody that's stressed out, or you have a beautiful woman in your life that you think could benefit from my message, let me know. I would welcome her with open arms. And just thank you. I have so much gratitude that people would take the time to tune in and hear what I have to say. So I will talk to you soon. I hope you guys have a fabulous weekend. Be safe. I know it's Halloween weekend. I've got a masquerade ball tomorrow night for a charity event, and then a Halloween party to go to, and all kinds of fun. But this is also a great energy with the full moon right now. It's not all just about releasing and clearing, although I had an amazing ritual to let go of a bunch of stuff last night. But start calling in, start writing down all the things that your heart desires to call into your life for going forward. It's time to focus more on your future than on your past, because the past is not in your future. So anyways, I love you guys. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.